I open this session for question and answers. But you would like to ask questions from our distinguished speakers, please do so.
That's a good question and is quite typical of what is happening on many buildings. How to answer this question? Normally, the doors are the last thing, are the last product to be considered during when discussing about elevators. People are expecting the doors to open and close always. People are looking about aesthetics. Then realizing that an elevator, like I was saying before, performance of an elevator is as good as the doors keeps opening and closing. What shall you do? You have to make sure that your car door operator is what we call has a positive closing. Positive closing means you have to drive the landing side from the opening fully 100% to the closing of the shaft. Normally, from a mechanical point of view, what happens? Most of the door operators release the landing coupling system some 30 millimeters before the door closes, or some 5 millimeters, some 0 millimeters. So if you are 0 millimeters, the door is closed. If you release 30 millimeters, then you have to use your hands, or the other alternative, you increase the amount of weight in the counterweight, on the door counterweight that closes, that can help you closing the door. But then you generate another problem. You give more energy to close the door by adding weight, and then you have to make sure that the drive, so the motor itself of the door, can then open the door when it comes to the same floor. So it's how you balance energy there. So then what you do, you increase the weight, you change the size of the motor, and then you stress mechanically the system. So at the end of the day, the only solution is to have an active system, or the best solution. All other solutions are kind of patchwork. You have to try and see if they work.
May I answer the question as well? The truth is, stack effect will always happen in buildings, yeah? And it is actually up to you to make sure your building is a very good sealed envelope. If you don't do that, you have a very big chance that stack effect will go. You know, you have multiple elevators very often in the same hoistway. Doors will open on different floors, so stack effect will definitely go through the system. Yeah, so I would absolutely advise you seal your building right. That is the most important step you can take to prevent this. We will do a lot to make sure that the doors work fine, yeah, but if that stack effect gets too big, you are in trouble.
So where can we get the guidebook D?
Sorry?
Guide D.
Just go to the Ctbuh website and you'll be able to order it straight from there.
All right.
It's quite simple. Ctbuh. Just go there, www, and you'll find it.
And one other question. The single hoistway cars, so in North America those are typically freight cars.
Yes, that's correct.
And I've never worried about the pressure relief vents in a freight car. So in a 60-story building, is that something we should be concerned with?
Sir, I just finished off the Trump Tower in Chicago. And those freight cars, when they go at 4 meters per second in that single hoistway, it's a big car, and that ratio is something like the car taking 60-65% of the hoistway area. Believe me, that air is forced around, and on a windy day, when we also have the extra effect of stack effect on those elevators, it's getting pretty noisy. Now, normally people don't care about that in freight elevators, but you do care about that on your passenger elevators, and that's what's wrong here in India. They do it on the passenger elevators.
Right. So did you vent the Trump Chicago freight car?
No, we couldn't. So the only thing I could do is put in the specification that the noise levels you put there are ridiculous, not doable.
And in a single hoistway, where would you vent the air?
Usually you have either a duct beside it or you have another elevator beside it. If you don't have them, you can't vent. I wouldn't put it through, in the roof area. You'll just be blowing dust around in that building. That's
to the adjacent electrical closet?
If you have something where you can use it, yes, you can do it. It will take it down quite dramatically.
Or into the pressurization duct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Snyder from New York. I guess this is a little bit to do with each one of your presentations. A lot of elevators, especially the NBC of India, require pressurization during smoke evacuation. Same with international codes, New York City code. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the best way to do that. There's not a lot of there's recommendations in ISHRAE and ASHRAE on stairwell pressurization, but not a lot of elevator pressurization. Whether you inject it on every floor for evacuation or whether you have it on one spot. Obviously, it's a problem on one spot because you're trying to pressurize, up to 60, 80, 90 stories from one position, which, it has an effect on the pressure differential between the doors, opening and closing these doors. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on, even though it's an evacuation method, and that's a presentation later today, just to get your thoughts on how best to handle those.
We've been, you have been dealing with this kind of questions over the years. In fact, there are standards dealing with smoke-sealed doors. What we did years and years ago, we applied these standards to test performance of our equipment in the event of large smoke, how to prevent the entry of the smoke within the shaft. There have been tests carried out, and there are possibilities to substantially reduce the amount of smoke that can flow from a floor into the chimney, which is generated by the elevator well. So, can be a combination of things. As you rightly said, you have stack effects. In the event of fire, you get different pressure going through the building. You have heat, you have openings, things breaks, you have a lot of, let's say, problematics that you cannot solve only with throwing or pressurizing the shaft. I would say is quite a complex issue to debate, which we are still debating at different levels, at ISO level as well as CN in Europe. We have different committees of which I'm also a member. It's not an issue that sure we can discuss in 3 minutes. It's very, very, very complex situation, those scenarios. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this fundamental thing is way outside my area of expertise, but I would like to broaden it just to talk about something of which I feel passionately and we don't do enough, which is early system integration of elevators into buildings and early team meetings and discussions. I mean, how often does this happen? One trade gets in, does something, and then suddenly, oh, good grief, we had something that we require, but we didn't really think it affected you, so we didn't talk to you about it. And I think, early and often, and get people involved. Every elevator company has great experts in these areas, and they can help if you get them involved early.
I agree with John. Get involved early. We can solve quite a lot of problems. I have seen, for example, the different systems you've been talking about. I've seen systems where they try to pressurize the hoistway from the top, from the machine room with incredible fans. I've seen systems where they pressurize at each floor. I've had even situations where they pressurize straight on our traveling cables, swaying them around at high pressure, and they had not protected that. So I had to go back to them and ask them to actually put plates in front of it, still allowing the pressure, but not disturbing the rest of the elevator equipment. If we would have had that in time, and we did talk with them already before they finally started testing it, but they just went in and tested it. It's it's something we really need to discuss in time. And if we know what's going to happen, we can take care of it. We can take care of the pressure differences on the doors. If we know what your stacker factory report gives, we can take care of the problems.
I am Shekhar, practicing appraiser and valuer from Mumbai. You explained about first generation, second generation, third generation elevators and lifts. Can you throw some light on the cost aspects regarding the average per square foot cost of the building? What percentage these type of systems will consume?
Okay. I'm not having much luck with microphones today. But really the issue here comes to, there are two fundamental costs. There are others we could talk about. The two fundamental costs. And one is the cost of having too many elevators. And the other one, of course, is the cost of having too few. And in terms of the cost of the first generation third systems, I would actually argue that they are in the end cost savers, because you may get a much more highly optimal system of elevators. At the end of the day, the big cost driver is always how much rentable space do I have in a building. So you can't really say, oh, your conventional system costs this, at a third generation system costs this, because the reality is it may end up being a substantial cost reduction because you've got a much more efficient vertical transportation system in the building.
So has the destination call system caught on, and tell us how popular it is. So has the destination call system caught on, and tell us how popular it is.
Well, there are as many numbers, and I would say closer to 10 than 1 installed in the world right now. And most of the really buildings that are pushing the envelope that come up these days, this has to be used, because fundamentally you just can't get the core sizes unless you do. This is a longer debate than we have time for now. I would argue actually no. I think this has a lot to contribute at all heights, but obviously right now it tends to be used where we're pushing the envelope in buildings. But I think it contributes where you've got traffic problems. For example, there are huge numbers of buildings out there where suddenly the population has doubled over 20 years for various factors, call centres, trading floors, whatever. You can't put in any more hoistways, but you can put in a destination control problem, and it'll solve a lot of your issues.
Thank you, John. Would you like to add to this?
No, I agree again with John. It is a system that's coming, and that is really starting to take more and more jobs. It is definitely a system where you could more efficiently use your hoistway space, gives you more efficient building. It's definitely coming. It is also a system where we see that buildings are actually stretchable, much more stretchable. They will really stretch. This system really stretches, but do know that if you do over-dimension this system, it can be quite tricky, because now we get the blame. Earlier people were standing in the lobby, now we get the blame.
Thank you very much. I think all of us have been challenged and inspired by these 3 brilliant speakers, and I'm sure you'll join me in thanking them and applauding them for their presentation.